So that one of the initiation processes for getting into that club is burning a £50 note.
Rothschild, Nathaniel Rothschild.
Mr. Rothschild.
We are going to play all of those videos. I had to dig deep into the internal part of the internet to find all of this for you all. You are not going to believe it. George Farmer is not as innocent as many people would like it. He is chaotic, even maybe more chaotic than his wife actually is.
It's like having it kept secret.
But what I find interesting is that clearly these people go back a long way. They were educated at school together because they were all at Eton. They all then went to the same college in Oxford, and now they're all running the government. And it seems that they've got the judicial system and the police in the back pocket of some of that establishment if there are people going to court and they're not necessarily,
The police will let them go after a night where they smash a restaurant up. A couple of years ago, one of the restaurant owner wanted to have the group charged, and the police refused to do it. This was back in 2004. Effectively, it's not even so much what they do, but the fact that they always get away with it.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's almost taken as read the drugs, I suppose. But
They created this club, and allegedly they were claiming that this club is a club where they can go and play cricket, do some other fun games like horse racing. But according to many accounts, many of them don't even care about cricket or horse racing. They show up there for the elaborate banquets and for the destruction of property, which they go out and eventually do, and for gathering blackmail on one another, keeping it for future use, or maybe talking to the future ones for help on all their crimes because they have all the police in their back pocket.
In one case, the most recent match register just has Bullingdon gave up the match after a couple of overs. So it was... The cricket club was kind of a veneer to give some sort of respectability to it.
it certainly doesn't sound like a dream team to run the country, does it?
No, not particularly. And I think that's one of the things that often comes in for criticism with the club, is that getting into the club is almost entirely dependent on wealth, particularly landed wealth. There is no... You don't have to be particularly intelligent or socially savvy or anything to get into the Bullingdon Club. It is basically just the richest of the rich.
Well, in most of the videos I posted regarding George Farmer, so many people asked me, and rightly so, he is called a genius. Why is he called a genius? What makes him a genius? And that is a question many people cannot answer. But if you can look at this, you can tell them this is a club where when you enter, they can fix your reputation and call you the best things in the world. You don't have to be a genius. It will be made so much that everything written about you will say you're a genius so much that people start to believe it. It's the same thing his wife was saying on a podcast, calling people like Elon Musk, Mr. Beast out for claiming they are these huge people. Meanwhile, they are probably given to us by the military industrial complex. And when you start looking into her own husband, you start wondering, is her husband actually a genius or just someone that was given to us as a genius by the Bullingdon industrial complex? That is a very good question, because when you look into his patch, it is looking more and more sketchy.
I mean, is it fair to say that as part of your Bullingdon Club membership, you're rewarded for doing as much damage as possible, and it's a kind of way of institutionalising bad behaviour?
Well, one of the common allegations that is made is that these people, when they do all these things when they're younger, that yes, not only are they encouraged, one of the guys told me that they kind of made a fetish out of doing as much damage as possible. But it's also that if you're a group of 10 very wealthy people who are going to probably go on to very important things in society, everyone's got dirt on each other. It means that everyone will stick together later in life because they all have the dirt. They all have the dirt on each other. They effectively all have some form of influence, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. But I mean, it's also a bit worrying, is that they might start doing the same sort of damage to the country and to us.
Yeah. Well, that, I think, probably outside of my expertise, but there are it's not difficult to draw parallels.
I'll tell you what, I'll at this point, Nick, I'll bring in old Labour Oxford economist Martin Summers. I mean, Martin's an old Oxford student, not the same college. I mean, which college did you go to, Martin?
I went to St Catherine's College. Charwell Polytechnic, as some of the posher colleges used to refer to.
I mean, Nick.
And these are not the only problems. Allegedly, there are even incidences where someone or some people might have lost their lives. There is an incident here which they are going to talk about, and pay attention. This is not just a couple of rich children destroying things because they feel like it and doing other things. This is a gang of individuals who think because of the money they have, the privilege they have, they can get away with anything.
Nick, also, what about deaths? Because there have been some deaths associated with the Bullingdon Club, some quite nasty ones, haven't there? And also, I mean, drug taking, it seems a little bit tame compared to talking about the people that have died.
So one story that I found that is all on record, has been through the courts actually, was in 1977, where a couple of guys, and one of them in particular, the driver, were in the Bullingdon Club at the time and were apparently, according to a source I have, coming back from one of their dinners. And effectively, the guy, now I have to make perfectly clear here that he was not convicted of drunk driving. He was convicted of dangerous driving causing death after quite a long trial. Now you can see a nice photo of him in the Bullingdon Club from that exact year. Gets off with a fine and a driving ban, effectively. Now, he crashed into a car and he killed 4 other people, one of which was a Chelsea footballer, quite a well-known guy called Peter Houseman. Now, as for why this has never come out, I'm not entirely sure. Either people have kind of kept the omerta about it, or because it was about 10 years before Cameron or Osborne were involved, it's never been directly linked to them. I thought what that showed a bit more is that a lot of these people will do whatever kind of damage to property it is or damage to life, but they almost never suffer any sort of consequences for it, if that makes sense.
In order to have dirt on each other so that then they can possibly be blackmailed in the future, or they'll keep quiet, as we were hearing the mafia omerta sign. But what when these people are let leash on a country, on an economy?
Well, I mean, I think you can compare them to something like the Skull and Bones Society at Yale and Harvard in the US. These elite kind of clubs for the super wealthy, where they basically do things which leads to them having dirt on each other, etc. And of course, the Bullingdon Club is not entirely Tory, but pretty much so. I mean, certainly, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but you have to go to Eton to be in the Bullingdon Club, do you not? Perhaps you could enlighten me there. I always presumed
the majority of people come from Eton, not exclusively, probably about 70-odd% do. George Osborne went to St Paul's, and not everyone goes to Eton, but it definitely helps.
Candace Owens is in the streets talking and singing about people who are linked to the Rothschilds, people who are linked to the Beers and very suspicious families, and people who are linked to royalty and things like that, to people who are linked to elites and even Nats or Yahtsees. I'm trying to be careful. In Yahtsees. But then her husband was in a club with individuals who have been linked to all of those things and more. Please, if you think I'm joking, here's another clip.
Well, let's look at some of those. There's Lord Halifax, during World War II, was the guy who was seen as the most Nazi British lord, who Rudolf Hess went to try and meet up with in 1941. There's also more modern version of the Bullingdon Club, the Dukes of Norfolk, Northumberland, Westminster, Roxburgh and Buccleuch. Now, I noticed also that the Duke of Buccleuch, back in the Second World War, was close to King George VI as the Lord Steward of the Royal Household, but he accompanied Lord Brocket to celebrate Hitler's 50th birthday. It was a matter of personal delight to Hitler that the Duke, a man who served in the very court of Britain's royal family, was there, and Buccleuch was opposed to any war with the Nazis. When it did break out in 1939, he joined something called the Peace Aims Group to try and urge a truce with Germany, letting Hitler keep all all the lands he'd stolen in Europe. So you've got some interesting characters here. More modern one, Rupert Soames and the Rothschilds family. Jacob Rothschild is apparently worth $7 billion, although a chap called Kevin Carr, who we have on this show quite regularly, Nick, who used to work for the Sunday Times Rich List, would probably disagree. I mean, this really is a pretty impressive list of people, including names like von Bismarck and as you said, Cecil Rhodes.
Yeah. Some other interesting people, for instance, one is Nicky Oppenheimer, who used to be chair of De Beers, the mining group that was set up by Cecil Rhodes. It's not just Tories as well. There's a UKIP figure, quite a senior UKIP figure, Stuart Wheeler, who was treasurer of the party until 2014, used to be a large Tory donor, donated quite a lot directly to UKIP, so there's that influence there as well. It's far from just the Tories. Lord Longford, who was a Labour peer until very recently, was in the club in 1925. It's really quite a staggering list. I'm sure others will come to me. Tom Lawson, who was son of Chancellor Nigel Lawson. I did a piece for Byline on what happened there. In 2000, the club got effectively smashed up a marquee, and it took 30 cops to shut that particular party down. Now, this is all verified. It's been reported on. That was reported on in Parliament at the time, except Bullingdon Club, as not that much was known about it then. It never really got that much traction.
Okay, what about stories about the Prime Minister, though, David Cameron? And have there been denials, and have you managed to get to the bottom of any of them?
So there's the one story that everyone knows, or that has been commonly reported by Cameron, about Cameron, is how a bunch of them all spent the night in a cell. This was in 1987. Boris was there as well. However, I've managed to get accounts from the time, and Cameron has always denied he was there. Now, that's not true at all. Cameron definitely was there. What happened is they smashed a restaurant window, the police were called, they got chased down into the botanical gardens of Oxford,
And some people might be thinking that, he was still a young boy, he stopped it. Listen, there is evidence proving that these people don't tend to leave these things. There are evidence showing that these people tend to meet up with each other again years after. They have some kind of blackmail on each other, and they tend to hold each other to account, and when they need any favors from each other, they tend to call or knock on each other's doors and say, hey, this is what I need from you, and you have to do it. And you have to understand, this is no ordinary club.
Bones in the United States is that it's not just something that happens at Oxford and a bit of fun that then gets forgotten about, Nick. Because I know you've put together some evidence that the Bullingdon Club people regularly meet up, actually, after they've long left Oxford. Yes.
So, and I don't want to, I'm not going to say how I know this, but I know at least two occasions, one of which has been reported was reported, I think, in the Diary of the Standard about 7 years ago, where they all met up to do this was just when Boris was first running for mayor, so a little bit longer. And about 6 of them from the same club met up to do a fundraiser for them. I also know that they often, or at least once in the last couple of years, had a reunion dinner at the house of one of the guys who was in Cameron and Boris's club, and Cameron and Boris were all there for it. Now, you can say, okay, well, they're just catching up with university friends, but when you have people for that same club, writing about them in national newspapers favourably, or you have Cameron, in one case, appointed one of the guys who was in the Bullingdon Club with to oversee a panel on state school spending, it's difficult to say they're just catching up with old friends when it's clear that actually, in some cases, they may be having influence on policy.
Now, Nick, whereabouts can people follow your work?
Anything about the club, any of its traditions, any of its history, anything like that. And so I decided, well, something needs to be done about that. So I decided to really, really try and dig deep into the club, all its histories, all its traditions, but not just that, to work out the links between what people in the club were like then and what they're doing now. And if you can see, and one of the points I try and make, is that a lot of what happens with the Bullingdon Club isn't just sort of useful indiscretions. These people go on to maintain the connections they made in the Bullingdon Club 20, 30 years later, when they're in high positions in journalism, politics, wherever, financial institutions, list goes on.
Rothschild, Nathaniel Rothschild.
Mr. Rothschild.